Hey guys, what's going on? MJ Madness here, and the 2019-20 NFL season is right around the corner. So today I'm going to be giving you my full season preview and predictions where I run through all 32 teams, where I think they're going to end up in the standings, and then end the video with my predictions for the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So let's get things started in the NFC with the NFC North. In last place in this division, in fourth, I have the Detroit Lions. I think they'll be a mediocre team. They're not going to be the worst in the league. They got a good quarterback in Matt Stafford, but they just don't have all the pieces to contend quite yet. In third place, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. I know this may come as a shocker when they have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in Aaron Rodgers, but I just don't trust that team. I think Aaron Rodgers is getting older. I don't think he has the same support. He's been injured a little bit, and that division is just so strong this year, so I see them falling back a little bit. In second place, I have the Minnesota Vikings, and I think this team is going to snag a wild card spot. A lot of people are sleeping on the Vikings because of their disappointing season last year, but this team still has so much talent, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people and sneak into the playoffs. And in first place in the NFC North, I have the Chicago Bears. I think this team, while they had playoff heartbreak last year, is ready to take that next step and become consistent contenders in this league, and I think they're going to have a great year and win the division, though it won't be easy. Next up, the NFC East. This one, I think, is going to be a division where there's a couple good teams at the top, but also some not so great teams down at the bottom. So in fourth place, I have the Washington Redskins. Alex Smith, who was going to be their quarterback going into the season, had a horrific leg injury. They've got some questions there. They've really got some questions all over, and I think they're going to have a tough season out there in Washington because they really are kind of in that rebuilding phase right about now. In third place, I have the New York Giants. This team is such an interesting enigma. On one hand, they have Saquon Barkley, who's one of, if not the best running back in the NFL already and just going into his second season. On the other hand, they traded away one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Odell Beckham, getting only scraps in return. But also, they've had Daniel Jones, who everybody doubted, lighting up the preseason. So we really don't know what we're going to get with the Giants this year. They should at least be fun to watch, but I think in the end, they're going to be a bit more of a disappointment and end up third in the division. Second in the NFC East, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I think this team has a lot of drama surrounding it, but I think now that Zeke signed his contract, they're still going to be very good. I think they're going to be pushing for that playoff spot all season long, get close to the wild card, but I think they fall just a little bit short in the end. I still have them good enough for second in the division. And in first place, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. This team really all depends on Carson Wentz. I think if he can get back to his prime form that we saw around 2 years ago, this team could be a Super Bowl contender. They definitely have the potential to really make a run this season, and I think they will get a lot of that back and have a really great year winning this division. Next up, we're moving on to the NFC South. And in fourth place in this division, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers brought in Bruce Arian to be their new head coach. I think that's a great hire. Again, this is a team that has some nice pieces. Jameis Winston is not a bad quarterback. He's just inconsistent. But I think looking at the rest of their division, I don't think they're going to be able to compete. I think they'll be pretty solidly in last in this division. In third place, I have the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are a very interesting team. On one hand, I could see them making it all the way to the playoffs, or they could completely crash and burn. I think they're going to be somewhere in the middle. They have the talent. They were really wrecked by injuries last year, and I think getting some of those guys healthy will help them back. But again, this is a very tough division to win, so I think while they will be in the playoff hunt, in the end, they'll end up third in this division. In second place and snagging a wild card spot, I have the Carolina Panthers. This is one of my dark horse predictions for this season. I really like this Panthers team. On offense, they still have Cam Newton, which, again, it really depends on whether his shoulder will be healthy, but with him in his prime, this is a team that could really make some noise this year. I love Christian McCaffrey. They have some really solid up-and-coming wide receivers. Greg Olsen is always consistent as a tight end, and they've still got a very good offense But what I really like about this team is their defense, because of course they still have Luke Kuechly commanding it, but now they've shored up their secondary a little bit. They've brought in Gerald McCoy, drafted Brian Burns in the first round, who looks to be an elite pass rusher, and I think they've really shored up a lot of the holes they've had, and they just overall have a really solid team with not too many weaknesses. I think that's going to be enough to get them into a wild card spot. But winning the NFC South, in first place, I'm going with the New Orleans Saints. They're always going to be wondering what could have been after last year's playoffs, but I still think this team has enough talent to run it back. Drew Brees, I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff just yet, though he may in a couple of seasons. I think this might be one of their last chances while that window is still open, and I think they're going to go for it and have a good season this year. Rounding out the NFC, we have the NFC West. Last place in this division, I have the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, while they may not have a good year, they should at least be fun to watch, and I am so excited to see how this team plays with Cliff Kingsbury as their new head coach, and of course, first overall pick, Kyler Murray as their quarterback. They should be fun, they should be explosive, but I don't think they're going to be good just yet. In third place, I have the San Francisco 49ers. This is another team that I think could make it all the way to the playoffs or completely crash and burn, and another team that completely depends on how their quarterback plays. That quarterback, of course, being Jimmy Garoppolo. If he's shown flashes of greatness before, if he can consistently pull that out all season long, they could be a force to be reckoned with in the NFC. I don't think he's just there quite yet. For how old he is, he's still an inexperienced quarterback. I still think they need a couple of years to figure things out in San Francisco, but I do think they're on the right track. In second place, I have the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks just acquired Jadeveon Clowney, which was an absolute steal, and for all their holes and weaknesses, they still have an elite quarterback. They still have some absolutely great players, and year in and year out, I think they're going to be a contender for the playoffs. This year, I think the NFC is just so strong that they don't quite get there in the end, but I think they'll be right there all season long. I have them in second place in the NFC West. And in first place, I have the Los Angeles Rams. This team was so close to the Super Bowl last year, they could taste it. And I think they're going to be hungry this year and ready to push back and make it back to the Super Bowl once again. This team, I really think, is still so skilled. A lot of their young players are still growing, and I think they're going to have another great year atop the NFC. So now to recap the NFC, the 6 teams that I have in the playoffs. Sixth place, taking up the second wildcard spot, I have the Carolina Panthers. In fifth place, I have the Minnesota Vikings. In fourth place, I have the Chicago Bears. In third place, the Philadelphia Eagles. In second place, the New Orleans Saints. And in first place, the Los Angeles Rams. Now let's move over to the AFC, starting things off with the AFC North. Last place in this division, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals, I think, are really in a period of transition. I'm curious to see with their new head coach whether they'll be going that right direction or not. But really, I think this is a rebuilding team. I don't think they're going to have a great year, but I don't think they're expecting too much, and so that's probably okay. In third place, I have the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens actually made the playoffs last year and returned much of that same team, so they could, again, have another good season. I think more than likely they're just going to be mediocre then. And I think that while they will be in the hunt for the division near the start of the year, they're going to fade out near the end and end up in third place. In second place, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think they still managed to snag a wild card spot. Though they've lost Antonio Brown, I think getting rid of that drama might help the team a little bit. And while no one's going to argue that they're as good as they were a few years ago in their prime, the Steelers are still a solid football team. I think that experience will get them at least to the playoffs. In first place in this division, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm going with the Cleveland Browns. Yes, I believe the hype. This team may be inexperienced, but they have so many good pieces. They have such talent, and I think they're going to be able to put it all together and have a really great year, finally, up in Cleveland. Next up, the AFC East. In last place, I have the Miami Dolphins. I think the Dolphins won't only be last place in this division, I think they could be the worst team in the entire NFL. They really are just kind of completely tanking and bottoming out right now. I think, again, similar to the Bengals, it's probably okay. I think the team knows that. I don't think they have any expectations, and hopefully in a few years they can right the ship in Miami and finish off that rebuild. But this year I think is going to be a tough one for Dolphins fans. In third place, I'm going with the New York Jets. The Jets, another team with some nice young pieces. I don't think they're quite ready yet. They still need some time to build, but I think they'll have an okay season and definitely some hope for the future. In second place, I have the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills have a very good defense. I don't think the offense is quite there yet, but for the first time in a long time, I think things are trending in the right direction for the Bills. All of the three bottom teams in this division, I think, are rebuilding but have some good things going for them. So I could see this division back up in a few years doing well. But of course, at the top, who else but the New England Patriots? Reigning Super Bowl champions, even with Gronk retiring, I don't think they're going to slow down at all. They should have another monster season, and I am really excited to see what they do this year. Moving on now to the AFC South. In last place, I had to completely redo my predictions when I heard this news. It's the Indianapolis Colts because Andrew Luck retired. Before this, I actually had them winning this division. And while Jacoby Brissett is a decent quarterback, he's not going to be able to replace the production that Andrew Luck would give you. This is a tough situation for them to be in because they're a very solid team without that elite quarterback that they needed. With Andrew Luck, I think the sky was the limit. Now, I just think they're in a tough situation. I do think there is a lot of parity in this division. All four teams are pretty decent, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the Colts having a good year, but on the other hand, I wouldn't be surprised to see them bottoming out entirely either. In third place, I'm going with the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, again, are another solid, kind of mediocre football team. They'll make the playoffs sometimes they won't. I don't know, I'm just not the biggest Marcus Mariota fan. I think he's good, not elite. They're kind of on that treadmill of mediocrity right now, if I had to say, and I think that's just going to get them third place in this division. In second place, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are believing the hype. They finally got rid of Bortles and brought in Nick Foles. They still have some pieces from that elite playoff team 2 years back. So I think they could have an okay season in Jacksonville. I wouldn't be shocked if they even made a run for the playoffs, but I still think they just need to kind of rebuild a little bit, retool, and see how this Nick Foles experiment works for them first before they can start looking at getting back into the playoffs. In first place, I have the Houston Texans. The Texans are a very good football team. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders, but I do think they're good enough to make the playoffs, to maybe make some noise, have some upset potential. I think they're just a solid all-around team with some great pieces on both sides of the ball. And in this sort of weaker division, that should be enough for them to take it home. Moving on now to the final AFC division, we have the AFC West. In last place, I have the Denver Broncos. The Broncos, I really like the defense on this team, but I just think the offense should be potentially a bit of a disaster. And so while I think they'll have some close games, their defense should keep them in it, and they always have great home field advantage, I don't think they're going to be able to win the ones that count and end up in fourth place. In third place, I have the Oakland Raiders. A lot of people think the Raiders will be terrible this season. I have a little bit more hope for them. In their last year in Oakland, I still really like the talent this team has. Antonio Brown, for all the drama he brings, is still an elite player, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them having a decent year, though they'll still won't be good enough for anything higher than third in the AFC West. In second place, I have the Los Angeles Chargers, and I think the Chargers bring home a wild card spot. The Chargers are just a solid team, and while they're not talked about, they don't have too many fans, I don't think you can sleep on them this year. The fact that the whole Melvin Gordon situation is happening, the Chargers always have had some disappointments in the past. I also wouldn't be surprised if they fell out of the playoffs entirely, but I think they're good enough to at least snag a wild card spot and maybe even make some more noise in the postseason. And finally, in first place in the AFC West, I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this Chiefs team is going to run back a lot of what they had last year. I think Mahomes was not a one-hit wonder. I think he's going to be great once again, and I think that should be good enough for them to really make some noise this year and have another great season. So now to recap my AFC standings predictions, I have in sixth place taking the second wild card, the Pittsburgh Steelers. In fifth place, the other wild card team, the Los Angeles Chargers. In fourth place, the Houston Texans. In third, the Cleveland Browns. In second, the New England Patriots. And in first place, the Kansas City Chiefs. And finally, to wrap this video off, my Super Bowl predictions. I think this is going to be a very competitive year. There will be several Super Bowl contenders in both conferences, but I think representing the NFC, I like the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that Carson Wentz is going to pull it all together. I think they're going to have a great year, and I think that'll be enough. Even though there's some heavy hitters with the Saints and the Rams, I really like this Eagles team, and I trust Carson Wentz. I think they'll be back. And then coming out of the the AFC, I like the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are a solid football team. They've got that experience from last year. Now I think they're ready to pounce. Some of the other teams in the AFC are kind of down this year. I think they're going to be able to take advantage and make it to the Super Bowl. So I'm predicting that the 2019-20 Super Bowl will be between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, and I am predicting that your Super Bowl champions will be the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, I think they have enough. They have what it takes. I think they're going to get it done this year and bring home a Super Bowl to Kansas City. That's going to do it for this video, though. Please let me know down in the comments your thoughts and give me your own predictions on what's going to happen this season and who you think is going to win the Super Bowl. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video for more NFL content all season long. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.